You are advised that in accordance with parliamentary privilege, any statement or testimony you provide before this committee shall not be used against you in any court of law, except in case of perjury, where it is proven that you knowingly and deliberately provided false information while under oath. You are therefore expected to cooperate fully and provide truthful, accurate, and complete responses to all questions posed to you, whether by committee's legal counsel or members of this committee. The committee appreciates your presence and expects your utmost candor and cooperation throughout the proceedings. Secretariat, can we administer the oath for the witness?
I, Abiosseh George, do solemnly, sincerely, and truly swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you so very much, Ms. George. I understand this is the first time you're appearing before this committee. Of course, you've had interaction with the investigators already. So I'll hand you over to Counsel for your testimony today. Counsel?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Welcome to the National Assembly, Ms. George. Just a few housekeeping rules. If the mic could just be just a bit of a distance from you, but when you're speaking, if you can speak to it. Aside from that as well, I believe I personally owe you an apology. This is the third time you're appearing. You're coming to the National Assembly for your testimony. And the second time, we couldn't proceed because of me. I was unfortunately ill, so my apologies. I hope you do forgive me for taking up your valuable time. You can speak to the mic and put it on.
That's fine, no worries.
Thank you. I would proceed to put some questions to you about the submissions and summonses. You can confirm or not, or deny whether what I said, what I state is a fact or not a fact. I would begin by asking whether you were ever issued a summons to produce documents.
Yes, the summons said to produce any documents I have that could help.
Was it a summons to produce, or was it a summons to appear before investigators?
I think it was to appear before the investigators and also to produce, I think, if I recall correctly, yes.
And you also received a subsequent summons to appear?
Yes, the same day I met the investigators, they gave me one, yeah.
If I may ask, in total, how many summons did you receive?
2.
2. Okay. We have been informed that you have submitted some documents today. Honorable Chair, I would ask that those documents, they are not quite ready to be put into evidence. I'm not sure how I would be able to put them into evidence because of the form they came in, but perhaps we can deal with that on a subsequent date. But I would ask, when you met with the investigators, a statement was drawn up that you looked at and you verified to be your own words.
Yes.
Do you stick by that statement?
Yes, the one that is signed.
Yes.
That I signed, yes.
Honorable Chair, I would tender the statement of the witness as A1. I am tempted to say AG, but because we have the Attorney General as a witness, well, AB. AB could be, yes, AB1. I'm not sure whether the witness we have for tomorrow took the initials AB.
Sorry, at G, ABG1.
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 Thank you, Honorable Chair. Okay. I would just ask that you give the committee a quick rundown of your academic and professional background.
I am a qualified accountant, chartered accountant, qualified in 2005 in the UK, and then came back home. I worked for KPS, which is a correspondent firm, which was a correspondent firm of KPMG in 2006, and then they became PKF, I think in 2009 or 2010, thereabout, and rose to the position of a partner, but resigned in 2015. Then I acted as independent consultant, which I still do quite a bit of that. And then in 2018 joined Next Year Pace Consulting as a partner as well. It's an audit firm as well. So mainly my area of focus is audit, advisory, consultancies, taxation, that sort of thing. Yes.
Great. I would proceed to begin to ask you questions about the foremost events at the beginning of the commission, before even its establishment, and then go on to its establishment, and we will proceed thereon to sales. And I would like to adopt a style where I give you enough latitude to explain as much as you can, but from time to time I would direct the conversation.
Sure.
Can you explain how you were first approached and appointed as a commissioner?
I received a call from the then Attorney General, Mr. Abubakar Tambidu, or Tambadu, yes. So he called me and then spoke to me about it, that I came highly recommended. But I said to him that he should give me some time to revert back on it. So he called me again after a couple of days, and I did say that I was supposed to come back, but I didn't realize the urgency of it. So he spoke to me again, and I said, yeah, I still had not quite decided about whether I wanted to serve or not. But on the third call, after discussing and looking at the pros and cons and asking also some questions, then I accepted. Yeah.
The minister was third time lucky then.
Well, if you say so.
And did you receive a formal letter from the ministry?
Yes, we received, well, I received a letter. I can't recall the date, but I received a letter, and I think it was signed by the Solicitor General then.
And were there any attachments, accompaniments to that letter?
No. The only other thing I received was a legal notice.
And were you informed about your role?
Yes.
Were you briefed?
Yes, I was invited to a meeting at the Attorney General's office, where I met with the other two commissioners as well, including the chairperson, and we were briefed in detail what is expected of us. At the meeting by the Attorney General, the Solicitor General was also there at that meeting. Yes. So we were briefed in detail of what the scope was the time frame, what was involved. Yes.
And this, I presume, was before the 12th day of July 2017 when the legal notice was issued.
Yes.
This would have been before that.
This was before. Yes.
And then subsequently, the legal notice was issued.
Yes.
And your discussion at the MOJ and the legal notice, were they comparable?
Yeah, in when we had a discussion, obviously they didn't mention all the companies, bank account, all of those things. But when the notice came, it listed out all, at that time, what was known, the companies affected, bank accounts affected, and so on. Yes, but the discussion was, I think it took about an hour or an hour and a half, roughly. Yes. But it was mainly just setting out what the objective of the exercise was. And asking, clarifying any questions that we had, because one of the key questions that kept coming up was the mandate, the length of time proposed to do the assignment vis-a-vis the extent of the work that one had to do. So that was a concern that was flagged since then.
What about logistics, and were those also discussed?
Yes, that was discussed at the meeting where the secretary, the then secretary, was Mr. Kurang, was also part of.
Oh, okay. So there were two meetings.
Yes. So we had another meeting with Mr. Kurang. There was a meeting with Mr. Kurang and also even with the lead counsel, Ms. Bensouda, as well.
Okay, so the first meeting, the quorum was the commissioners,
Yes.
the Solicitor General, and the AG,
Yes.
the Attorney General. And then the second meeting was all the commissioners,
yes.
the secretary, lead counsel, and the two respective
Exactly.
officers.
Yeah.
I see. And who took the lead in defining the commission's internal procedures, division of responsibility, and just in general structuring the commission?
Like you mean from the commission's angle?
Yes.
Yes.
Whether be it from the commission's perspective or from MOJ, it could have been also discussed in your meeting. What form of structure and working relationship you would have?
Yeah. It was discussed. The key thing emphasized was that it was not self-accounting, meaning that anything we wanted would go through the MOJ. That was highlighted upon. And I do recall both myself and Mr. Kurang had concerns about that, which was raised. And then the key thing they mentioned was that we should prepare a budget, which Mr. Kurang and I had to sit down. We did two budgets, if I recall correctly. Because the initial one is like we didn't know what to. We just came up with whatever we thought was should be in it, like hotel. Even I recall the fees of lead counsel, everything was in it. And then based on information provided later on, we had to revise it, scale it down. But obviously we knew that it wasn't realistic, because it's like you hardly have any information to start with. Yes. But it was something, I guess, for the ministry to start with. That's what we prepared, and it was we were advised to send it to the Solicitor General upon completion. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Because we've had extensive conversations with the Honorable Chair of the Commission and the Secretary, both secretaries on those issues, I will skip some of those budgetary issues, but I am at liberty to tell you that the High Table may come back to it and deal with it extensively.
Sure.
You had mentioned that the first secretary, and I'll be referring to the first and second secretary. I'm sure you would be able to follow.
Yeah.
The first secretary acted as an intermediary between the commission and council. Is that so?
Yes, that is so.
And the first secretary was responsible for a large part of the operations.
Yes, it's the secretary was responsible for directing everything. Because we never came face to face with witnesses prior. The investigative team, the commissioners never had any dealings with them. Lead counsel would also channel whatever they wanted to channel through the secretary. That was the style of the processes. So the secretary was like our buffer, the intermediary. Yes,
I see.
So anything, sorry.
That's fine. Go on.
So anything the commissioners also wanted to relay, they also did that through the secretary. So if we wanted to issue a memo to the legal team, we would do it through the secretary.
Okay, if you could indulge me here, if you could just paint for us a picture of how the commission saw the structure. Rather, the commissioners saw the structure of the commission as a whole.
I'm not sure I understand.
What was the organogram?
Okay. Yeah. So the organogram was you had the commission. Well, I would always say you had the commissioners, but obviously the chairperson is our lead, followed by the secretary.
On the one hand, you had, if I was to do a drawing, I would perhaps do a circle on the top.
Yes.
And on the top of that circle, I would put the chairperson.
Yes.
And just beneath the chairperson, I would put two commissioners.
Two commissioners, yes.
Okay. And then where would I draw the next circle?
No, then you'll come directly under.
Directly under, okay.
Yes. So you'll have the secretary.
The secretary, okay.
And then if you have your arrows going this way and that way.
Yes.
So you have we have legal team, let me call it legal team.
On the side of the secretary.
On the side.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so the legal team on the side. Under the secretary also you'll have their secretariat staff.
Secretariat, yes. Okay.
And even like investigators to some extent.
Okay.
Yes.
That's so the investigators, where were they under? Were they under the secretariat or were they under the lead counsel's team?
Yeah, the investigators generally worked with lead counsel. So I would put them under lead counsel. But you had the other security that would also be on the secretariat as well. You know, there was all a security team to make sure that everyone was safe.
Okay.
Yes.
So okay, I guess you mentioned that because most of the investigation team were security personnel.
Yes, they came from, I don't know, I think CID or something like that. Yes.
Okay. So
I don't know them. Yeah.
Just to be clear on that, part of the secretariat would be the security for the commissioners, lead counsel, and the secretary.
Yes.
And then part of the legal team would be the investigation team.
Yes.
So would you say that the lead counsel had two teams that she was responsible for?
I would say yes.
Okay, and that took command from her?
I would say yes, that took command because she worked directly with the investigators.
Okay.
Yes.
Did this structure work effectively in practice? Just indulge me in that question.
It worked to a large extent. There were times when obviously you'd have bottlenecks, but I believe it worked to a large extent. For example, I don't know if it's okay if I can give an example.
Of course, go ahead.
I know initially we had where like correspondence would come in, which it should ordinarily be delivered to the secretariat, but rather it was being taken to the legal team's office, which was not correct. So this was something that we had to deal with so that you follow the proper procedure because they should take a copy before it's circulated to the legal team. So we had that sort of instance, we had that coming out.
Okay, that in fact was my next question. But since you've answered it, I would like to know how the coordination was maintained.
Yeah, because sometimes I just want to understand your question.
That's fine. That's fine. If you wish to understand, I can dilute it a bit.
Yes, so yes, you can do that for me, please.
All right. So, because we are aware that the commission had a high volume of operational activities, I'm sure documents would have been coming in almost every second. It's sometimes the case that the lines could be blurred, especially where terms of references were not issued to you by the government, and the roles could sometimes be blurred, as you have indicated in in your example. I wish to know in your operations as a commission, how, when you strayed away, how you were able to maintain it.
Yeah, so I'll come to that question, but in terms
Sure.
of the secretary, the way it worked, the then secretary, or if I call it secretary one, I'm not sure if that's how you mentioned. Yes, yeah. So internally, I do recall Mr. Kurang developed like an organogram for his own staff, the secretariat staff, how things should work, and they had a team briefing of what is
Sorry, who developed the
Mr.
secretary?
Kurang, yes.
Okay, okay.
Like how his team should work, because they're comprised of secretaries, driver, whatever it is. They're comprised of various people. So he developed a process for them to work. And they would have discussions, and specific tasks were assigned to them. So when mails come in, they're supposed to be recorded. They had their way book, which they will record. But I don't know what happened, that it became blurry at some point. But when it was highlighted to us by Mr. Kurang, same page, and we'd have a discussion. In that case, we had a discussion with lead counsel, Mr. Kurang, and us, the three commissioners, where we again reiterated how things should work, so that there's no gap.
Okay, I know I promised not to touch on certain things, but
No, it's okay.
how was the relationship between the commission and the government? The Ministry of Justice, to be specific. Were there any concerns raised by the commissioners, whether operational independence, financial independence?
Yeah, we had questions. Like I said from the onset, we did have questions, because for me particularly, I felt that if you don't have some form of financial independence, then there's obviously going to be, in terms of efficiency, we will not be able to do our work properly. There's just no way it will work, which was similar concerns expressed by Mr. Kurang. But I guess, I don't know if at that time the explanation provided was because the commission was supposed to be for a 3 months period. So you can't follow the legal process, I think, by having an act and all of those things. This was why they felt they could control it, or they could deal with that under the Ministry of Justice. But we knew that there will be bottlenecks. Yes, because obviously, looking at the way government works, it takes one thing. I guess I found it strange because I'm in the private sector. So something that should be 30 minutes, it took usually sometimes 3 weeks. I couldn't quite understand that.
The bureaucracy.
Yes. So we found it challenging.
Okay.
Yes.
I wish to make headway, and that's perhaps everything I wanted to probe on the establishment of the commission. But if there's anything that perhaps is fundamental in your view, you can put it to the committee before we move on.
Sure.
At this point, if you can think of anything in the setting up of the commission that would be of importance to the committee.
No, I think the key thing there we realized was that the commission was set up in a hurry. Because I guess from the meetings that we had, we could tell that there were no, nothing was prepared. So it's like we had to look at the setup, like even deal with how to arrange things, how to develop processes. We had to have working sessions, we had to do things from scratch practically, which I think some of us found strange, that we had to be so involved in the process, but we rolled with it because, like I said, we were already in it. So we just had to continue with it, and then make sure we document things as we go along. Of course, there are things that sometimes we would forget, but then once it came to our attention, we would also correct it, like try to have develop processes to deal with that sort of situation. Yes.
What about issues of operational oversight? Were there frequent communications from the government? I know you mentioned the briefing, the first briefing where you were informed of what was expected of the commissioners and the commission as a whole, as a collective. However, were there subsequent briefings, if I may put it that way, or instructions from the government steering the commission on what direction to take on certain issues?
When you say government, okay, in terms of we had that, so from we say the tractors, I don't know if that's what you're asking. We had communication from them on that. I think some of the tourism TDA areas, we had communication from that as well. But in terms of MOJ, like specifically writing to us, we didn't really have, or having meetings, we didn't really have that many dealings with them. I don't know if the chair was contacted directly, but I'm not aware of that. I know with TDA, I know that one, the AG specifically came down to us to have a discussion on that. Yes.
Okay. Let's look at the sales. I wish to delve directly to the sales, Honorable Chair. If the High Table feels there's a gap, I can allow the High Table to probe on questions before I jump to the sales.
No, really. Proceed, please.
Thank you. I would like you to inform the committee how the commission arrived at the decision to sell and what preparations were made. Feel free to go in detail. What preparations were made for sales, and then I would lead from there.
Okay. Okay, in terms of the selling, we knew that we had to deal with sales at some point of various items, not just tractors and so on. The then secretary, based on our meetings that we had regular meetings, was advised to develop a process for disposal of items that will cover, be it cattle. At that time, we felt that we'd be even dealing with cattle, the tract, everything. So a process was developed, which was shared, and everyone gave their input, and we adopted it. So this was the process to guide us when they go on sales. Prior to that, what you needed to do and so on.
When you say a process, you mean there was a document
Steps, yes.
given to them that carried
Yes.
steps and
Exactly. Yes, it was prepared by Mr. Kurang. Yes.
Okay.
And it was shared to us, the three commissioners plus lead counsel, and we all did lend ourselves to the document. And this was adopted after a few changes. It was not much, but basically it followed the entire process if we wanted to sell whatever item.
Can you enlighten us on that process?
Yeah, so it talked about the teams. He even formed a team, like a temporary team, of the people assigned that would do X, Y, and Z. We talked also about you had to do like a public notice out, notifying people, having the items valued. So it was covering practically everything you would expect in a sale, doing a transparent sale, and up to when you would bank the cash. So it was a full procedure that was developed. Yeah.
All right. So there was basically a manual upon which the team on the ground could be guided upon.
Yes. I wouldn't say manual because that's a big document, but it was just a couple of pages. Okay. Yes. But it guided anyone to pick it up.
And now, before I ask questions on the sales, let's categorize the sales so that we have a common understanding. There were two phases of sales.
Sure.
Can we agree on that?
Yes.
And there were, in the second phase of the sales, there were three different sets of sales. Two that were done simultaneously by two different teams, and one that was subsequently done. Can we agree on that as well?
Yes, I think so, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's begin with the first phase of sales. Were the steps heeded too?
Yes, the steps were heeded too. I think the only thing we that we had, or I recall that came up, was the not banking intact. What I mean is banking intact is whatever you collect from whichever customer, you should bank the entire amount. If it's 13,000, you should bank it, not use part of the money to pay for things, which was done. Because the query then was, or the justification explained by the then secretary was that a float had not been given prior to the sale, which we felt that it was not communicated, because if that was the case, then the sale should never have gone ahead. So, because it doesn't make sense, people are on sales, you can't give them money to buy food, on logistical, it doesn't make sense, which was not communicated. So, but we felt that even if they wanted to use money from the sales proceeds, you cannot take that unilateral decision. The matter should have been referred back to the commissioners, in particular the chairperson, and a decision would be made. That was the key obstacle we felt, because it deviated from the process.
And that was the first phase of sales?
That was the first phase of sales, yes.
I'm sure this was regularized in the second.
Yeah, when the second round of sales was done, we amended the procedures a little bit, because rather than the secretariat staff handling cash, we felt that we can seek assistance from central bank, which they said they did not have enough cashiers at that point. So we ended up getting assistance from accountant generals to deal with that aspect of things, so that one doesn't have to deal with banking and all of those, or cash is risky. Yes, so you can eliminate that.
Yes, Honorable Chair and Ms. George, I would like to recognize the presence of my co-counsel,
Sure.
Ms. Aji Senika.
Sure.
Okay. And aside from that anomaly, or that issue rather, if I can pull back the word anomaly, aside from that issue, were there any other issues in the first phase?
I wouldn't say issue. It was more of a discussion about, I think there was an asset that was sold like for very high, and it ended up becoming like a discussion point for us. Because then we were quite concerned about, is it that the valuer got the amount, did the valuer did not get do it properly, because it's but then the explanation provided was that I think there was a excitement. People were quite interested in the assets, and this was what led to that. So I remember we looked online to see if we were buying a new one, what it would cost. And it was just a discussion, because we also had to understand the commissioners are not there, so we wanted to understand what was special about that particular one, if I put it that way. Yes.
Okay, I will get back to the cattle. I just noticed that I skipped the cattle inventory and whatnot, but we'll get back to that once we finish the first phase.
Sure.
There were also concerns about some assets that were sold below par, weren't they?
Yes.
I believe 2 assets.
Yes, because after the sales, a report was prepared by the then secretary, and we had a team of accountants that we would work with. So they would review the documents prepared in terms of looking at the receipts vis-a-vis what was banked and also the reserve price. So this was highlighted, yes. This was highlighted. I think, I can't remember how many, but I know that there were a few items that were sold below the reserve price, which, yes, which was also discussed, yes.
And once that was discussed, what was the extent of discussion, if I may ask?
It was a, I recall that meeting. It was quite, I don't want to use heated, but it was loud. Because obviously there are issues that led to that meeting when the sales stopped. So I do recall that that particular meeting was very loud. And it was not, the intention was never to be an accusation. It's more of understanding what happened when the team were at the sales, what led to them taking a decision to sell below the reserve price, because we had to understand why, because the reserve price is a guide. The whole thing about the tractor sales was because during the commission we realized that Exim Bank of India had given Gambia financing for tractors. So, and they kept, the reports that kept coming to the commission was that the tractors were being cannibalized. People were cutting or removing parts. So people kept saying that the assets were deteriorating in value. So the objective was to get as much as possible, at least so that it just doesn't go to waste, if that's the right way of putting it. Because we every time we were getting reports of is it cannibalization, or yes, that's the right term. Yes.
You had mentioned that the discussions were loud, but you attributed it to a build-up. I would like to understand the extent of that build-up.
Yeah, it was after the sales was stopped, and Mr. Quran came back to the commission location. So because I remember when the chairman called him using my phone, because the chairman at that time doesn't use mobile phones. So I called and passed the phone to the chairperson, and he was instructed to stop the sales, and the reasons were put to him of why the decision had been taken. But then what the chair told him also was that when you come back, you come to our offices. We had an office, and we'll have discussions, because we needed to discuss further. So that was the genesis of the whole thing. So when he came back, and then he started explaining. So I think by the time Mr. Quran came back, I think he was already heated. Yes. I remember that, because we had to say, calm down. We gave him cold water, but it didn't quite help. He was still very, he was very heated. Yes. So so we talked about the reasons. Chairman explained the reasons why. He advised him to stop, and also asked Mr. Kurang for what happened, because apparently there were things that happened. So he explained his own side, what had transpired. But Mr. Chair told him that, okay, the reason put to us, we have to give government a chance to also come up with something, but it's not going to be like an open-ended sort of thing. It's, if they don't come back to us, then we'll go back. So we didn't see it as an issue, but I don't know, he wasn't quite happy about it. So it led to subsequent meetings. So after the report was prepared in a few days, after a few days, then we had other discussions, because then we'd had input from the accountants who reviewed the document. So there were questions also to be asked, because they'll give us a summary of what concerns they have. So we'll, based on that, we'll also have a discussion on that. So the meeting was, like I said, it was not heated, but I think it was loud, very loud.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll come back to that. Yes, Honorable Chair.
Just before you proceed, a bit of clarity from Honorable Sir.
Sure.
He wanted to ask for clarity on one of the things that he mentioned. Honorable.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam. My question is about the halting of the sales. At first, you said there was a call that came in that you put the phone was put on speaker and you had what was being discussed. And then there was a follow-up letter for the sales to be halted. But according to you now, you are saying that the reason for the halt was because of the report that you had that they were collaborating some of the tractors. Is that the real thing that triggered the first one?
No, we got a call from someone at Office of the President explaining what government's position was on the sales. They wanted us to halt. So a decision was taken to halt the sales. On the very same day, a letter also was received from Office of the President, which they were supposed to put into writing what they had discussed. But then the way the letter was phrased, we didn't agree with it. So the commission also responded, saying that we couldn't leave the sales open-ended. But after the call from the Office of the President, immediately after, the chairman called the then secretary to inform him of the decision that was taken to halt the sales. But then when he comes back to the commission location, then we will have a discussion on why he said that and also on the way forward.
So there was no reason given during that call, that the reason for the halt, there was no reason given?
From the chairperson to Mr. Farag?
From the call that you received, there was no reason given for the immediate halt of the sales?
Yes, when the person called from OP, they said that, they wanted the tractors to be given for subsistence farming, that sort of thing.
For farming?
Yes.
But not the issue of collaboration on this?
No. This was like reports we had during our briefings at the commission.
So are you telling us that they halted twice?
No, once.
Once.
Before we took the decision to sell, we were getting a lot of reports through advice from the secretary and even lead counsel that they were coming back. The investigators were even telling them that there was a lot of cannibalization on the tractors. So this is what led to us deciding to sell. Yeah, I don't know if I'm clarifying.
Yes, so we'll get back to that fateful day of the auctions. But I wish to go back to, I wish to go forward to when the report was laid. The first secretary's report was laid.
Right.
And then there were there were sales that were off the roof, and there were some that were below par. I want to focus on the ones that were below par. Once it had been dealt with that they were sold below the reserve price, was there any mechanism put in place to cater for that in the future? Was it put perhaps in those steps that you had developed to guide the team on the ground?
No, we didn't talk about reserve price, selling below the reserve price, because from my own perspective, that should not arise, because like we said, the reserve price is just a guide, the rock bottom, what you'll get. But we couldn't foresee a situation where you would have to be selling below the reserve price. It didn't make sense to us.
I quite like the way you answered that, especially the use of the word rock bottom. And I'll give you a chance to clarify that if that's not what you mean, but is it that the reserve price is not quite the value of the asset, but it is the amount that should be accrued at least, if that made sense?
Yes, I see where you're going to, and I do agree with that, because the reserve price is just looking at the asset after all the deterioration, the fact that you were to sell it in the market, what you would realize. So I look at it like it's just like to say, if your force push comes to, it's the minimum that you should get. With the best will in the world, maybe even if you needed to go below that, I think we are not the commissioners are not on the ground, but I feel that it is not something that you would expect to see a lot of. Maybe one-off, probably, but for me personally, I think it shouldn't occur.
Okay, and but before I ask this question, because I would be leveraging on an opinion, and it's only fair to brief you on why I'm asking for your opinion.
Sure.
Because we see every witness as a witness of fact and also a witness that could advise and guide the committee. And this is why I'm asking you this question. When the valuations reports of the vehicles came, were there any eyebrows raised of some of the values attached to certain vehicles?
Yes, because we even had a time when we had to invite the valuer. We had to invite the valuer to come in because we needed to understand the rationale used in how some of the values came about. I can't remember his name. I don't know if it's I can't remember. Yes. But I remember that we had to invite the valuer because when we looked at it, some of them, it's not our domain. We have to rely on what is given to us. But some of the values we felt, because in my mind, when I say tractor, I'm looking at a full-blown tractor. So I couldn't quite understand some of the values that were attributed to some of the assets. But the explanation provided was that the state the assets were in. So this was one thing that kept coming up all the time, the state of the assets. That is what is having an impact on the valuation.
I would ask the Secretariat to pull out a few documents in the meantime. RS6, I believe. RS30. RS23, just in case. Yeah, RS6, 30, and 23. You see, I asked that question because, yes, the valuer is the expert, and one can appreciate that that is their field, and they would perhaps know better, and they would perhaps know why they ascribe certain values to certain assets. But in some cases, the valuer explains the reasons for whether it's depreciation or the reason for why assets are valued at a fraction of what could be commonly known as the price. And of course, there are certain assets. When somebody mentions a Range Rover, unless you live in a rock, you know that it's a car that is of high value. And when one attaches a value that is significantly lower than what an ordinary car would be worth, I would think that that alone would raise some eyebrows. And your answer is taken. However, I would like to know whether once eyebrows were raised, was there an attempt to compare? Because the aim was to ensure that the state recovers some of the monies that were misused in the former regime.
In terms of comparability, because sometimes we would look at things online, like you mentioned, what the cost of a Range Rover would be. And I recall when we had the discussion with the valuer, he didn't take it kindly and felt that we were challenging his expertise, which, you know, was not, I don't know, technical people can be, yes. So he didn't quite appreciate that. And we had to explain that it's not that, but we just need to understand why. Because when we look at some of the assets, we know that if I was to buy it, even if it's secondhand or moved down 2 or 3 times down the line, you would still have to pay a handsome price for it. So we couldn't quite understand. So, but the outcome was that he stuck to the values he had put there, and explaining the basis that he stuck to the basis that because he said he saw it and he inspected them with his team. So that was the reason we didn't go further with that.
Fair enough. Just a very peripheral issue. It's not a big deal. I just wish to know how valuers were engaged.
That it was dealt with by the legal team and secretariat. Yes, the commissioners, we did not negotiate with anyone. We don't deal with anything on that. Yes.
Okay. Just to be clear, with regards to assets sold under the reserve price, after it had been flagged from the first secretary's report, there was no mechanism put in place to remedy it in future instances, because your understanding was that the reserve price is the bare minimum, and such instances, even if they occurred, should be very minimal.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So when the first round of tractor sales were halted, they were halted because of a call that came in from the office of the president. Can you steer us through your recollection of that particular incident?
What I recall, it was after a sitting. I know it was after the afternoon sitting. We were in a chambers, if I call it that. And then they brought a call. I don't know whose phone it was on, but they brought a call that the chairman, somebody at OP wanted to speak to the chairman. And he did. And we were all together, so he just put it on speakerphone. That's how we heard. They explained that it was at a cabinet meeting.
Can you highlight who the person was?
I can't recall. I usually take notes of meetings, but for whatever reason, I cannot recall who.
Was it?
It was the SG at that time, if I recall. I don't know who the SG was at that time even.
Was it a gentleman by the name Mr. Habib Jammeh?
Yes, I think so. I think so.
Let me give you another name, just out of the abundance of caution. It could also be a gentleman, rather, by the name of Ibrahim Assise.
I don't know. I know it was a gentleman, but I don't recall who. I just know that they said it was from OP. But I cannot for the life of me, I cannot recall who.
When you say SG, do you mean Secretary General or Secretary to Cabinet?
I think it's the Secretary General.
Okay.
Yes, that's the name that's coming. But that's what I think. Yes.
That's fine. Please
Yes.
proceed.
So they explained that it was at a cabinet meeting where the issue of the tractors had come up, and concerns were raised by some of the ministers that they, rather than selling, they wanted it to be given for use for subsistence farming and so on. So they wanted to be given some time so that they can give us a proposal, give the commission a proposal. So that was the call. That was what the caller said, and the chairman agreed with that. But I recall after the call that we had a discussion, because we said like a public notice had been put out there for a few weeks. I think it was running for 2 weeks. So this was one thing that maybe they could have come up before, highlighted before the sale actually started, because then it also looks funny if we have to stop the sales at that point. But the sales was, a decision had already been taken to stop the sales, so we did stop. Yes.
All right. So I'm interested in the discussion that ensued amongst the commissioners about the propriety of that process, the manner in which it was done. Did the commission validate how the government had approached it?
From the commission's perspective, we saw that this could have been done way prior if they felt they wanted to do this. But then we also felt, okay, they've put a case forward, their government. We needed to also give them a chance to come up with something, because we said the essence is, if there are people who can use it, why not? So that was the reason. But we also knew that we couldn't leave things 6 months, it wasn't possible to do that. So that was the reason. But we felt that internally that this could have been highlighted way before the actual state sales commenced, putting their feedback across, and then which would be considered, because we were quite concerned about the perception out there, how people would see it. You're starting something, you have to withdraw it, which did not quite go down well with some of us. Yes.
Perception. I would hold you to that word a bit later.
I have to be careful. That's why I'm choosing my words.
That's all right. But I wish to answer that question you just posed. Why not? But before I do, I would rather say that, perhaps let me ask, how did the commission or the commissioners how did you see yourselves vis-a-vis the government? What was your understanding of your role operationally and how the government can feed into that?
Well, based on the understanding we had, we were supposed to be, or we are to be, independent in how we do our work. I remember it's one word the chair always would say: we are independent. Nobody can manipulate us. Nobody can say anything to us. So those were things that continuously kept coming up. We were very mindful of the process, because when we discussed internally, we felt we bounce off ideas of each other, and we felt, can this be seen as some form of interference? Which we felt, and that's why I said we felt, even if government wanted something different or wanted to propose something different, this could have been highlighted way prior to starting, so that it can be considered. So we were quite concerned about that. But then in the end, the chairs explained that no, he didn't see it as that. The other commissioner, Sen, also said, okay, let's give them a chance. So this was the decision that was taken all around. Yeah.
You see, I'm trying to grapple my mind through something. This is a commission that was mandated to identify certain assets and report back to the government. In identifying the assets, the commission realized that a lot of assets were being dissipated, were being cannibalized, and some of them were being consumed, in the case of the livestock. And to avoid that, to avoid reporting after the fact and having no value in the assets, the commission resolved to sell the assets, because the chief, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the chief reasoning was to preserve the value. Because if you sell them, they cannot dissipate any longer or depreciate any longer, correct?
Sure.
And here comes a government with a very noble suggestion or proposal. It's very noble. But I want to look at it vis-a-vis the commission's mandate and the rationale for sale. Now you're here considering giving out, distributing tractors for free, which would defeat the purpose of preservation. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, but I'd also have a but, because it can also help other people to generate, be it whatever they eat for their community, and then also they sell.
Oh,
So
the
the
proposal
impact-
was very noble.
Yes.
The nobility of the proposal is not being questioned.
Yes.
It's the validity
Validity, yes.
of the commission distributing after an order of the commission was made to preserve these items. That's what I'm trying to grapple my
Yeah,
mind.
I do see your point, yes.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So once you had the discussion with Mr. Kurang, the sales were stopped,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And what became of the government's request?
Nothing. The commission never received any proposal from government. So then we decided to, that's what led to us deciding to do the second round of sales. Because again, there were more reports coming out that, oh, now people are even taking, is it engines out? I don't know. The technical terms, I don't know. But based on further reports, and we were also trying to round up what the commission's work. So we felt that enough time had been given for a proposal to be given.
That incident was the beginning of the end for the first secretary.
Sure.
And one could argue that it's because the secretary stood for the principles of the commission that he was subsequently relieved. Would you ascribe to that argument?
And it will be restarted once, after whatever length of time. If they don't come back, it would be restarted. But like I said, the tempers at that time was very high. The tempers were very high, so I don't think he was also willing to listen to what anyone had to say.
The other argument also is that because the tempers were high, and perhaps Mr. Kurang was not being rational, that put a scar in the relationship between the secretary, that's the first secretary, Mr. Kurang, the commissioners, and lead counsel. What about that argument? Would you ascribe to that?
Yeah, I think it's not particularly the commissioners. We had issues with him because the way it worked, there were times when issues would arise and we deal with it. I feel you can speak your mind. You don't have to agree with me, but we speak our minds. And then usually the chair, because of his age and experience, would be our unifying figure. So he did a lot of mentoring as well to us, particularly when things were, sometimes when tempers were high, so he would calm the situation down, talk to us, hear from each person, and there are times when he would engage us independently to hear your views, and then collectively again bring us together to work together, because we had to work together. So that was so I don't want to say it was more the commissioners having a problem. Personally, I don't have a problem with Mr. Kuran. Yes. So I don't believe, but I know that it's that time. I think because of the tempers, he wasn't rational. Yes. In some of the things, yes.
I would be referring to a document. I ask the Secretariat to look for AMK 5. But perhaps if you can take my copy, I can do without for expediency. I'll give you a second to just peruse the document.
You want me to read the entire document or the highlighted portion?
No, just for your benefit. You can just internalize the document, then
Okay.
we can proceed. Are you set? If I could get my
Okay.
documents back.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
Now, after you have just painted us a picture that the first secretary was pretty heated when he came back from the auctions. Now, that temper, if I may call it, perhaps perhaps let me say that temperament continued to be formalized. Now we're looking at AMK 5, Honorable Chair, and this is a memo from the first secretary to the lead counsel, and this came after this incident. Now, before I ask questions pertaining to AMK 5, I wish to know, once the secretary had come back with his report and the chair explained to him why sales needed to be halted, was there any communication between the secretary and the lead counsel?
In terms of letters?
In terms of that debriefing session?
I can't recall if lead counsel was there at that particular briefing, but I know when we were talking about the report, she was part of the discussion as well. Because I remember that, particularly the one where the item was sold, I think for 1 million or something like that. She was at that meeting. I do recall that. Yes, but other meetings with Mr. Kurang, the then secretary, it's like all throughout because we were very close to whoever the secretary is. The commissioners worked very closely with that person because the secretary is or was our eyes and ears and everything. Yes. So we had to really work very closely. So even in the mornings, when having coffee, it doesn't need to be a formal meeting. These are issues that we'd all talk about. But like from then on, it just went downhill. Yes.
Now, having looked at AMK 5, were you privileged to see this at the time it was issued?
Yes. We did raise the discussion with Mr. Kurang because at that time things were very tense. At the you could feel the spark, so it's like at that time things were tense, but we did raise the discussion relating to this, and then the key thing that we said was, with anything you do or you write, you have to bring evidence to support whatever it is that you're writing. And I remember the chair mentioned that he advised Mr. Kurang that he could have raised these issues with him, giving him a chance to be able to deal with it, rather than writing and copying everyone. Yes, so he felt that he was not given a chance as the chair to be able to deal with
internally.
Yeah, deal with things internally. I think that was the key thing.
Okay.
He felt he wasn't given that opportunity to do that, rather than just letters, because there were just so many letters flying at that time. Yes.
So I would move on from the letters. However, I just wish to clarify one issue. From the letters, it seems the secretary had a bone to pick with the lead counsel. And from the letters as well, it doesn't seem like all the allegations were substantiated. Was that the thinking of the commissioners as well?
Yes, that's true. From the early, I don't know if I can expand a little bit.
Please do.
The relationship between the then secretary and lead counsel then was strained. It was not smooth. I don't know why, but from early on, it was not a smooth working relationship. And like I said, the chair had to intervene quite a lot because of his age or something, but he was able. He dealt with it. Let's put it that way. But the relationship was not. It was not a smooth one.
When the first secretary was before the committee, this committee, he explained that a lot of the time he got interference. Perhaps he did not use the word interference, but a lot of the times his role was usurped by lead counsel. Were those concerns ever brought to the commissioners?
Not okay. Let me break it down, because there were times when he would come and say, "Oh, let me be specific here. Like what led to the sales? Because it came to our attention that the cattle was going to be sold by somebody else. Then we got information that the planes was going to be handled by Ministry of Finance. And again, and even us as commissioners, we were concerned, because we said we are supposed to be dealing with these things. How can we account for these things, and other people are we found out that different people are trying to deal with, which we felt, then if something goes wrong, then we have that issue, because it would be like under the commission, which we are not even responsible for. So in terms of that, but he would say that he did mention that, oh, it was lead counsel dealing, but you cannot you don't have the evidence to back it, that it's based on this discussion, or I don't know. So in terms of that, it's hearsay, and then the other party says it's not. So what do you do? Yeah.
Okay. So the bottom line was that their relationship had deteriorated.
Yes. It did, and it just got worse. Yeah.
And we are in receipt of a memo, which you would have been copied, from lead counsel responding to the first secretary and giving the government an ultimatum. And of course, that ultimatum was resolved in her favor. But when we had the former Attorney General here, it was said, if I could be wrong, but the record would vindicate me, that the issue was that the secretary could not work with both the commissioners, because there was a strain between the secretary and the commissioner's relationship, as well as the secretary and the lead counsel's relationship. You have confirmed, or rather you have stated here, that there was no such strain between the secretary and the commissioners. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, what I said was, yeah, there was no particular strain, because even when we had issues amongst ourselves, it would be dealt with. So for me, my perception is, if you have an issue, it is dealt with, then you move forward. You can't go back on things you've already addressed. So from the commissioner's perspective, that was our view, because we continued working together. Yes. So, but Mr. Kurang's temperament, you have to understand it to be able to embrace it. Yes.
It comes with him. You either take it or you leave it.
Either you take it or you leave. So it's just one of those things. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, of course, we have agreed that, or rather, we haven't agreed. Perhaps let's agree that the government's attempt to halt sales was interference. Can we agree on that?
Yes, I can say that. Yes, to some extent, yes.
Now, I would say that's the first bit of interference. The commission, through the chair, wrote back to the government with a strong letter, and of course, reiterating what the chair would have told you every day, that the commission is independent. However, a subsequent letter came from the office of the president, also giving an ultimatum to the secretary. Either he apologizes or he will be met with consequences. How did the commission take that?
I think we felt that that things happened that we did not know of. I think we felt that there were informations that we didn't know. Like, why is this coming about? So we heard from the side of the then secretary, but obviously we're not hearing from the side of the other person. So we have to go, to some extent, we took what the then secretary was saying, because there's no reason to fabricate that, in my view. But we just felt things could have been handled better. But then sometimes, like I said, when tempers are high, how you react at that point, it's a bit difficult. So it came back with an ultimatum, which from what I can recall, I'm not sure he didn't write no, he did not. Yes, he did not write apologizing about that, no. Yeah, because he stuck to his ground that what he did was right, and we also said it's true, he couldn't take the unilateral decision to stop the sales.
Okay. And I would say that in itself perhaps is the second bit of interference from the office of the president to the commission. You are at liberty to disagree, of course.
Yes. Or can I be not comment on that?
As you please. Of course, the conclusion of all these activities resulted in the then secretary being dismissed. And I would ask that you are shown MOJ 3Q2. Also, not a big deal. I just wish for you to look at it and reflect upon
Sure.
3Q2. Perhaps before you're furnished with the document, we can deliberate on why he was relieved. Because now we have had two narratives. One is because an ultimatum came from the lead counsel because of their deteriorated relationship. And the second outlook on it was that the office of the president asked for an apology, which was not forthcoming. And that's why he was relieved of his duties. Were you ever told why he was, as commissioners, why he would be relieved of his duties?
I recall the Attorney General, the then Attorney, invited us to his office, us, the three commissioners, and I remember it was on a Friday, where he briefed us. And for me, it was not about asking for our opinion. For me, it's telling us that the decision has been taken, that he's relieved. So I do recall for myself, I never said anything. Because I felt it's not about asking me what I think. It was more of informing us of a decision because they're the appointing agency, I guess. Well, that was it, which I felt was a shame because we started the process together. It would have been nice to complete the process together.
Honorable Chair, it should be in the first set of MOJ documents. It's from one. MOJ 3Q2 is the dismissal letter, yes. And on the one hand, if we go by the narrative that it was because of the fact that relationships had deteriorated, perhaps you can forgive the government for relieving Mr. Kurang of his duties because the greater good demands that the commission must conclude. And perhaps he was the sacrifice. But if we look at it from the other limb, which is that an apology was not forthcoming to the office of the president, and he was sacked because of that, I would put it that that's the third bit of interference from the government. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, if that was the case, then that is clearly, yeah, that's definitely interference, yes.
Okay, so that faithful Friday isn't where you give in for the decision being made.
Yeah, because what the then Attorney General said was that it was because of the working relationship that had deteriorated. So there was nothing on this apology, nothing was said on that.
Okay.
So it was mainly about the situation is untenable. So something has to give.
Yes, I believe those were his words to the committee as well.
Oh, okay. So
That the situation was untenable.
Yes.
I believe I remember those words. All right. I would now skip and go on to the second phase of sales. By this time, perhaps before I go to the second stage rather, once Mr. Kurang had been relieved, Ms. Ramatulai Sar was then appointed, or rather was then asked to fill to act on in his position.
sure.
And I assume that you were informed on that fateful Friday.
Yes, because when the commission started, Miss Sar, we were informed I don't know what, but anyway, she was supposed to be his direct assistant, and she was introduced to us on one of the meetings that we had gone to at MOJ. Yes, but we did not see her at the commission. We never saw her there during the time the then secretary was there, and I recall one of the times that, one of us even said, "But we don't see her." Yes, so that was it. But then after he left, then now we were told that she would take over because she had been there, so she should be able to, and then also because of her seniority in the civil service, she should be able to do that.
And how was, once Ms. Sar was onboarded, was there any orientation from the commissioners?
Yes, so when
lead counsel?
she reported to the commission. She reported to the commissioner's office, and the chairperson, we gave her a briefing of what was done before, how it's done. And she also said she was already familiar with the secretariat staff because I guess most of them were from the Ministry of Justice. So she already knew them and knew who was doing what and so on and so forth. So she was familiar with that. And I recall, if I recall correctly, the lead counsel gave her processes because she had even done that from prior, prepared a document where what is expected also from her for her side. But she worked very closely with us and I recall even the chairperson sort of attaching her a little bit to me that to guide her, make sure that she settles down.
You've mentioned that Ms. Sar was furnished with a document by the lead counsel. And I wish for you to look at RS3. RS3, please. My apologies, RS4. Is that the document you're referring to?
Exactly.
It was somewhat as a TOR coupled with an MOU between the Office of the Secretary and the office of the lead counsel.
Yes, so it was just to smoothen the process. Yes.
I note that in RS4, it is indicated that all incoming letters that are addressed to either the lead counsel or the secretary from outside usually passes through the secretariat, and all should be forwarded to counsel in case of letters. Was that the agreement the commissioners had with the legal team and the secretariat?
Yeah, so the procedure was that any letters that came in, it would be recorded in a way book, and then a copy, the original should have been kept at the secretariat, and then a copy made for the legal team so that they can do the investigation or whatever. And then those that also came to the commissioners would also a copy, because we also got copies. But the original was to stay at the secretariat. Those don't go out.
And this is for all manner of letters?
This was supposed to have been for all letters.
Okay.
Yes. But I do, sorry, can I say something?
Please go ahead.
Yes, but I do know that at times that they were, because I remember even Ms. Sarah also saying that sometimes the legal team would go and collect exhibits, the originals, without them channeling it through the proper procedure, which was not right. So I always used to say, you need to deal with it because you are the secretary. Yes.
Okay, so she was given some guidance by lead counsel to at least help her maneuver what was left of the commission's mandate.
Sure.
And she also, you had mentioned that she was familiar with most of the staff because she was their deputy permanent secretary at the Ministry of Justice,
Yes.
where most of them hailed from.
Came from, yeah.
But you know, with familiarity comes some undertones. Now, Ms. Sarr testified before the committee to say that her two deputies had animosity built up within them, and they had a very bad working relationship, even coming from the Ministry of Justice. Now, the reasons she gave perhaps would not be appropriate to deliberate on much, but the fact that there was tension between the person that would be the substantive secretary and the deputies, who were at that time more abreast with the work of the commission than the secretary, and you know, in an ideal world would be tasked to brief her and put her up to speed with the matters of administration. Was that brought to your attention as commissioners?
No, this is the first I am even hearing of this. So I'm not aware of any animosity between them, or because the thing with the commissioners, we didn't encourage this chit-chatting thing. We were more focused about the work. But then what we said was, if you have any difficulties in doing your work, then you have to tell us. So in this case, if she felt it was really hindering her work, then I feel the onus is on her to have highlighted that. Because even chairman would even go every morning, Miss Sarah, how are you? How was the family? Any problems? So these were things that, and I also used to really take an interest in her so that she would also settle down properly into the position. Because if she does, if she's able to function properly, then it makes our work also easier. So we really had that relationship. But for me, I don't, it's the first I'm hearing of that. So I don't know, because if it affected her, then she should have said something. Yeah.
Did she perhaps make a complaint along those lines, perhaps to state that the reporting lines were improper?
She did not. She did not. Because we never dealt with her two deputies. All we would deal with is her. Anything we want to channel is through her. So as a secretary. So we wouldn't ordinarily know even if there's an issue. Yes.
Okay.
Unless it's brought to our attention, to be
That's
honest.
fine.
Yes.
Let's move on. Yes.
Yeah.
Honorable Chair.
Answer briefly, just one more clarification. You mentioned the legal team used to collect exhibits. Now, maybe what we need to clear is, how do they collect these exhibit? They collect it from the secretary at the commission, or they collect them from those sending the exhibits? How do they collect them?
Yeah, I think there were times when they come in, like it's been admitted, we would mark it like how you're marking yours, and they had a filing system. So I think at times when they needed information, instead of going through the secretary requesting, in that case, they should make a copy for them, because the original should not be walking around. Yes, but they would go to, rather than going to the then secretary or the secretary, they would go through maybe the other secretariat staff, who would just give them. So that did come up, and we had to address it and say, you are the head. You have to be seen as the head to take to do what's right. Yes.
Let's proceed.
Thank you. I had wanted to put a pin on the second phase and go back to issues surrounding the cattle sales. But let's conclude on the second phase, since we have begun. Now, the second phase, when was that moratorium lifted to get back into sales?
I think we.
Oh, hold on, Honorable Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. You can respond, and then the high table has drawn my attention.
I think in July sort of time, after July, August, we started talking about that again, where we had to get even some of the valuers done, I think by Riders for Health. We had to engage them. The secretary wrote to them. We also spoke to some people from Vehicle Control Unit. I think that's the way they're called. Yes, all again, it's in preparation to carrying on with the sales. So we were just trying to put modalities in place, tidying up our house, yes, to be able to continue.
Honorable Chair.
I think Honorable Kupana wanted to ask a question too.
Which at this point, I think you've started the second phase, right? Because what I am going to ask will be in connection to RS4, but I don't want to take you back. If you've started something new, I can allow you, and then...
No, perhaps you can probe on RS4, and then I can proceed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Council. Ms. George.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask a very brief question.
Sure.
Earlier on, you did display an organogram to the lead counsel. So in respect to the organogram that you earlier on displayed, would you think that RS4 would be in order?
Some of them, I'm seeing that some of them, no, but I don't think it should change it. I think this was originally even from when Mr. Kurang was there. It's a document that was already in existence with her. Because we said if there are mails coming, it shouldn't go to the legal team, because then there could be that omission. So we were quite concerned about that when it was highlighted, because then I remember then Mr. Kurang saying that, but there are letters that come in, or even we'd be saying, but oh, Mr. Kurang, did nothing come in? But there's that gap. We are not knowing what is going on. So that is when we said, no, all correspondence have to go through the secretariat, which is the right procedure. It is logged in, and then the original remains whilst the copies are now circulated. So that was the procedure, because we felt that then people don't really know what's going on at the commission, and it shouldn't be like that. Yes.
Thank you for that response. And does that apply to RS4 in entirety, that everything in RS4 was actually in place during the time of, Mr. Kurang as a secretary?
Sorry, can I just read the entire document again?
Yes, you may.
Yes, so some of it was not, some of it was changed. Like for example, the exhibits, because we realized on that the secretariat also had some limitations. So in terms of, so we would, I remember even I kept the original of the logs for exhibits because the secretariat couldn't manage that. We were having one document or two documents with the same reference, which wasn't making sense. So we had to take it over. So in certain things, yes. So not all of it followed through, like the question Honorable asked. But then it was really, I guess it was a guide, but we changed things as we felt it was necessary to. Yes.
Finally, my last question would be, in general terms, would you consider this as an improved version, or does it in any way impair the initial process that you had?
I am not sure if, because I know that from the first secretary, like all mails would go to the secretariat. But then when I read here, it's like things are being routed through to the legal department. So it's like probably certain amendments were made to the document. Because I know that from the onset, we had clarified and crossed that hurdle where all correspondence goes through, because obviously we were quite concerned, like I said, of the omission. So it looks like something was changed. I would have to, if I was to see the then, what was issued then prior to now to compare, but it looks slightly different in that sense, yes.
Thank you. Council.
So the decision you had just before your engagement with the honorable member,
Sure.
Painted the picture of how you started to rethink the second phase in about July or August, you said.
Yeah, around July, because I remember one of the commissioners was on performing the Hajj. So that time we were using it to clean, like I said, clean up our house. Yes.
Was there a meeting convened to discuss the second round of sales?
Yes, we had any meeting we had, we would have with the secretary and also lead counsel in that case, because we needed to start. So the secretary would take minutes because she had like a diary. So there were minutes to the meetings that we had. Obviously the mind doesn't remember. Yes, all.
So the second secretary, Ms. Ramatullah Sar, says that she alluded to a meeting. She alluded to a meeting that she was not part of, but she told the committee that she was instructed and briefed by the chair that the second phase would be commencing soon, and she was asked to take care of some administrative issues like the notices. Do you recall her being in that meeting, if it happened?
We had many meetings, but I do know that we wouldn't, because like I said, we already had our way of working, and I know that the chair would never have a meeting without the secretary being part of it. So this is something that we wouldn't do without, be it whether it was the then secretary or the secretary we finished with. We wouldn't have a meeting without the secretary, because like I said, the secretary is supposed to be our eyes, ears, and nose, if I put it that way. Yes.
And the decision to have the two secretaries, Ms. Jammeh and Mr. Bojang, serve as team leaders, was it made in such a meeting?
Yes, it was floated. If I remember correctly, I think it was lead counsel who proposed that, to have that, because one of them already had the experience with the former secretary. So she understood the process, and the other one, even though he wasn't part of it, but he also had a knowledge of what was going on. They were all part of the process. So to make it faster, that was the rationale, to speed it up, to have two teams going, doing separate sales, yes.
If I may just ask, out of curiosity, why wasn't the secretary made a team leader?
I think to some extent, I don't think she was interested in that. Yeah.
Well, her account was that she was not part of the decision making.
Yeah, because it wasn't, you know, because when Miss Sar came in, with the best will in the world, it's,
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
no, I didn't say anything. I'm thinking of my choice of words.
That's fine.
Yes.
Take your time.
You know, like there are times when people would run away from responsibilities, and we have to be able to deal with things. So one felt that it was, the proposal was made for the other to deal with it. So that was what occurred. Yes.
There was also the issue of expediency, to have the secretaries go and the secretary remain to continue the hearings.
Yes.
Was that also a consideration?
I don't think that was a factor.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So just to be clear, the proposal came from the lead counsel, but
Because for me, like some of them, even if I see them, I don't know who the names are. We are not familiar with them because we don't deal with the secretariat staff. So it was a proposal made, and we could see that one of them had definitely been part of the sales prior. So they would obviously have that knowledge to fall back on.
And of course, you had told us prior that they were equipped with a document to guide them on the steps to take in case they had any doubts.
Yes. So we had what Mr. Kurang had prepared prior, and the only amendment to the document we made was in terms of the handling of the cash. That was the key changes that we made, because before it was handled by the then secretary collecting all the physical cash, but we felt that this time we don't want to do that.
So then you introduced the central bank and accountant general's office.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, we've had the privilege of having Mr. Bojang and Ms. Jammeh before us, and their testimonies are quite consistent amongst themselves. And I note that, and one of the issues that they had raised to the committee was put to you by our investigators, and I wish for you to deliberate on it as extensively as possible. But it was told to us that you had received a call from Mr. Bojang while he was on the field on conducting the sales. And his account, as well as Ms. Jammeh's account, is that they called you to seek guidance, to seek approval rather, whether to sell certain items below the reserve price. And their evidence is that you gave approval. Can you please elaborate?
Okay. I do recall receiving a call from Mr. Bojang. I think it was one evening or something. I never spoke to Ms. Jammeh about this at all. And he explained his position, that they were getting offers and they couldn't sell some of the assets. Actually, what he said was they couldn't sell some of the assets. They couldn't raise prices to even meet the reserve price. They were all below. And my first question was, why are you calling me? You should channel your question through to the secretary, because you don't call us directly. So he said they tried her and they couldn't reach her. So that is why they are calling one of the commissioners, because the way even though we were 3 commissioners, but I was more the coordinating with all commissioners. So I said, okay. So then he explained the position that they were having difficulties even getting the reserve price on some assets, because some of them, the they found out that the tractors, they were really cutting parts out, or you would see engine over there and stuff like that. So I said to him, but you know the procedure. No commissioner, no individual commissioner can take a decision to authorize you to sell below the reserve price. And it would be suicidal for me to do that. I said, so there's no way. Whatever the case is, we have to refer it back to the 3-man committee for a decision to be made. And I said, and I know the people I'm dealing with, they will not agree to that. So, like I said, a reserve price is a guide. So there is no way that you can say that so many assets would be sold below the reserve price and it's acceptable. It is not acceptable. Because the real thing was, and I remember saying even to him, I said to him that I am not there, I cannot see the asset. So I cannot advise you on what to sell it. I said, but if it's the fair process, you have to follow the fair process. But the key thing, the reserve price, it's just a guide. We shouldn't go below that. So that is it. So, but I did not have any discussion with Fatu. So for her to say she's also on the same line, that's quite interesting, because I did not discuss that with her. Yeah.
And from what you've stated, you did not give them approval.
I did. That's why I said it's suicidal for me to do that.
If I may ask, and you don't have to answer this question, but do you know why they would suggest that they called you and you approved?
Well, I guess it's easier to say one of the commissioners did, right?
True.
Yes. So it's easier to say one of the commissioners did, but logically, it doesn't make sense, because we don't work like that. We work collectively. So even if you're in the soup at that point, we cannot authorize that. I cannot. I don't have the mandate to even authorize that.
Yes, my question is, why Commissioner Abiosseh George and not the chairperson or Commissioner Jammeh?
Like I said, they knew that I coordinate between the 3 commissioners.
Okay.
Yes. So in anything we do, even with lead cut, I coordinate, even amongst ourselves. I'm able to reach him at certain points.
Yes.
Mr. Sen also too will not pick up. So it's one of those things where we coordinated, and then when we need to meet, then we will come together to meet.
Understood.
And then discuss the issue. Yes.
Now.
And sorry,
yes,
can I just say something? And interestingly, when their report was submitted afterwards, because I remember that came up, because when the report was, they prepared their sales report, like we did for the round 1, I know that the secretary was then instructed, give it to one of the accountants that we work with to go through the report, to see any anomalies, to spot out. And I remember one of the questions coming on was the sales price were even so low, which we had questions with. And I do recall the 2 of them, even the other commissioners were there, Yahya was there as well. They were saying that, oh, it's the state of the assets. This was one thing they all kept emphasizing upon. But then we said, like, the first round, I know the rains did start, but then you wouldn't expect so much of a deterioration that you're getting such low sales. It did not add up. And I know that we definitely did ask those questions, yes.
Okay, just probing back on their line, the appropriate line of communication. As you have mentioned, it was not quite appropriate for them to reach out to you as a commissioner directly, and they should have reached out to Ms. Sarr. And I just want to probe on, of course, Ms. Jammeh and Mr. Bojang are not here to defend themselves, but the idea that they could not reach Ms. Sarr, is that something tenable? Because I believe there's a whole secretariat.
There is a whole secretariat.
And the secretariat is manned with several people. And just like the commissioners, if you cannot reach the chair, you call Commissioner Abiosseh George. Now, if I take that rationale to the secretariat, you cannot reach the secretary. Was it that difficult to reach someone else? Of course, this is not a question for you. We're just
It didn't
knocking
make
heads.
sense. And then, you know, one of the things they said was, oh, they call, she didn't pick up. But then I said, if you call her, she didn't pick up, then send her a message. She will reply to you. Because I recall there was a time they couldn't enter during the sales. I think one of the areas they were supposed to sell, I can't remember which of the teams, they couldn't have access. But they were able to communicate back to the secretary. That brought it to the attention of the commissioners, and a letter was drafted to send to the people to give them access so that they can do the sales. So I felt it was convenient because at that time I had a young baby as well. So I was quite snappy on the phone when they called, because I didn't even recognize the number. I don't have their numbers.
Okay. And it brings me back to Ms. Sar's testimony before the committee. And although the committee would indeed note the difference in the character of the two secretaries. You have one that is full of energy and you have one that is a bit laid back. However, Ms. Sarr did, in her evidence to the committee, state that she felt undermined. One, none of our secretaries stayed close to her, even though their offices were located in the same proximity. They spent most of their time at the legal office or lead counsel's office. And I believe the question was already put to you. I already put to you the question, but I'll put it again. Were these ever raised to the commissioners?
No, we're not aware of it. For me, because we'd ask if everything was going okay, and she would definitely say yes, or I have this challenge of still when the exhibits were being given, she raised that and we addressed it. So if she felt anyone was, because the way I see it is she's their boss, even in the civil service structure. So, and for you to get to that position, you have to be able to take the tough decisions as well. So, but it wasn't brought to attention, even of them spending more time at the legal department. I don't know. Yes, because once we get into our chambers, we don't move around. It's like we were all in definitely separate places. You wouldn't see even if they're around and so on, yes.
Would it also come as a surprise to you to know that Ms. Sarr was never given a document? The report was never submitted to Ms. Sarr, the report of the sales, by her subordinates. Rather, it was submitted directly to the commission.
But they should have copied her, or they given it to her, because they should report to her. Yes.
So would that come as a surprise?
Yes, because I'm sure we saw it, but at that time, I don't think any of us paid much attention to that, to be honest. Yes. But if she had highlighted it at that time, then we would also take note of some of the challenges that she's having.
Okay. Pardon me.
Yeah, that's all right.
Council?
Yes, Honorable Chair.
Yes. Before you move forward, I think it's a convenient time for us to break.
If the chair could indulge me,
Okay.
I just have a few more questions, and then the.
Okay.
Okay.
If it is not a lot, then I can allow you just 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, I've been advised, and perhaps a different face would be seen after lunch.
All right, that's fine.
Yes.
Okay. All right, at this point, we will adjourn the meeting and go for break and prayers and come back at 3 o'clock. Huh? Thank you.